appreciate all your time here. So I want to start out with something really crucial, important. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Nothing there before, just darkness and dirt. God said, let there be light, and there was light. He separated the day from the night. God saw that it was good, everything he made, the sky, the land, the sea, the animals that he laid. He made man in his own image with wisdom and might, and gave him dominion over all things in sight. This goes on and on. I asked ChatGPT to write the beginning of the Bible, Genesis, as hip hop. And so it carries on. It has about, I don't know, 5 more stanzas than it. So now you know the story, the beginnings of all things. God created the world and all that it brings. Let's give a thanks to him for his amazing grace and praise his name forever in every time and place. So this is really a tour de force. This took him about it took him about 5 seconds. I'm not saying it's great, but it's entertaining, and you can do this in any mode you want. You can do Cole Porter. You can have it, come up with, I don't know, you can have hip hop by Cole Porter. You can have the Bible by, anyway. And there's all kinds of, I'm sure everyone's toyed around with, the amazing thing that's ChatGPT and its congeners. So I'm going to kind of dive into this. The problem I had with it is when, we are Pandata, and we are interested in the facts and not narratives. It's not a big problem when ChatGPT is kind of used as one lens to look at something else, and if it's not problematic for our political betters, then everything's hunky dory. But otherwise, it is a problem. That is. So here's the verses. I can send this to anybody that you want to get back into Bible studies in a more upbeat way or downbeat way, depending on how you look at it. Here's my article. I titled it ChatCCP, the know-it-all with Flair, Chatbot's hidden agenda. So I'm going to, kind of go through the article a little bit because I can, because I wrote it. So I'll shrink this one. I can't shrink it down. So the figures, by the way, are all AI generated. So here he is kind of taking your pulse, a little kind of computer thing. So there are different, what is ChatGPT? Well, it's a large language model. The best analogy I've heard is actually came from the New Yorker, believe it or not. Here's a limited time offer. I don't know if I can get rid of this. Basically, it's a blurry JPEG of the web. So you ever see those pictures of, he looks like I don't know, a face or something, like when you get close, it's a bunch of credit cards, or it's, a bunch of postage stamps or whatever. It's all kind of pixeled. But when you step back, you can see Marilyn Monroe or something like that. ChatGPT is a given instance of, this kind of looking at the totality of stuff out there. It's not necessarily knowledge, stuff that's been compiled, and then squinting and riffing on that. So a little bit like jazz, there's some improvisation to it. But jazz does have its methods, and you can't do anything in jazz. You have to kind of follow along to the beat. You have to follow the leader. You have to be in the group, and there are aspects to that are similar to Chat GPT or any model. Now there's different ways. The analogy I use later on in the article is a taxi or your parents. Let's say you're 16 years old and you want to go to the beach. So you ask your mom and dad, can I go to the beach? And they could drive you. They could drive you free, quote unquote free. But they say, no, you get back to your work, and today's not a beach day, or they give you 18 different reasons. They might want to, have you go, but they're going to make it conditional. Yes, I'll take you to the beach, but you have to clean your room. Blah, 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 blah. Taxi, if you have the cash, you just get in a taxi. It's like, I want to go to the beach. Fine, boom, you go. And there's very few constraints. There might be traffic or something like that, but mostly the taxi is going to take you where you want to go. And in some ways, Chat GPT and these other LLMs are like that. They will take you where you want to go. But sometimes they have a parental layer. So this is really what it is. Who is the parent? Who runs the thing? And I didn't invent this. So these guys at OpenAI did, and there's some very odd guys at there's one odd guy in particular, and you should read about it. I forget his name right off the top of my head, but probably somebody here knows it. But I gather he's actually not making money off this directly, but he is kind of a leftist evangelical, and this filters through, or it really doesn't filter through. it is a parental top layer to what will come out of ChatGPT. So I put this up as a warning that a lot of kids, a lot of people in general, teachers, academics, or whatever, are using ChatGPT as a knowledge base, and it's one of those things. It's not quite even as open as Google. Google, you can oftentimes see conflicting answers if you put in a question, and it'll filter the ones that our elites want you to know by putting those on top. It'll make some things difficult to find. But if you want to read about Denis Rancourt or Pierre Corey, you can. It'll take some time. You'll find it. ChatGPT suppresses this and also downplays the possibility. So the picture I have here is, again, this is all AI generated from a different program. This is from Hugging Face, something like that. Oranges are not often orange. When they get pulled from the tree, they're green, and they put them in ethylene or something like that, a bath, gas, room, whatever, and they turn orange. So the political biases are, an external application, much as green oranges are cosmetically corrected with immersion in ethylene gas, and certain, conveniently truthful COVID critiques become, inconveniently become consigned to Lenin's dustbin of history. And mind you, we are here all familiar with the way, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, will censor you, previously Twitter, and get rid of your channel. I've had like a couple of different YouTube channels removed because I had Recep Levy, professor at MIT, come on and say that kids shouldn't be given the vaccine at all currently. And he said this in January. I put it up in January. The WHO agrees as of March, but my channels were destroyed. I still have the videos, but nobody can see them. Anyway, so if you as an experiment, if you have the time or interest, you can put in Marty Makari's 18 myths and have them played with by ChatGPT. In the interest of time, I've done some of these. I'm not going to bore you with all of them, but you can ask about lockdowns, and everything's hedgy, and basically I came up with Fauci bot. Basically is depending how you pronounce the word, it's either bot, B-O-U-G-H-T, or B-O-T. So it's Fauci bot and Fauci bot. That's the way mostly, if you consider this, that's what OpenAI put in as its parental layer. So there's ongoing debate about the effectiveness of lockdowns, blah blah blah. Lockdowns can help reduce the transmission of the virus, so forth. And then my interest, I wrote an article in the Daily Skeptic, that Omicron is not it's not a SARS-CoV-2. I didn't make this up. I looked at biologists and genomicists and whatnot, and they don't feel as linear relative. It's probably a coronavirus, probably spontaneous. It's like the common cold. But if you ask it, factual stuff, ChatGPT will hedge and deny those facts. So again, these are really, these are kind of in depth, not worth getting into. I'll just maybe switch over. This is a guy I interviewed a few months ago as well, Brian Chow. He's a young math kind of whiz, genius type. And he has two articles in the New York Post about how artificial intelligence becomes biased if you want to follow up on the ChatCCP theme. So he here asks it to write an article about Hunter Biden in the style of the New York Post, and he won't write an article about Hunter Biden in the style of CNN. Sure, it will. So it'll follow along with CNN style, and there's a little bit of breathing in the background. Somebody's got going. If you can watch your mic.
Hey, Duncan, could you mute?
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, CNN is a well-established and respected news organization. So this is just standard kind of Hillary-ish, Obama-ish claptrap. So I just, my basic point, if you want to just log off now, is that, caveat lector, but there's more fun to be had in the meanwhile. So this is AI making, Fauci is, I got an offer, would you like to buy a bridge? So he's actually from Brooklyn, And so you can play around with this, it's just really wonderful, fanciful things. So I got him as a mafioso selling Brooklyn Bridge. And that's kind of what it is if you want to buy a bridge. I like jokes quite a bit. And, the thing that one of my favorite jokes is the talking dog joke. I'll tell it rather than show it. Guys, he's a busker and he's got an act on the street, whatever, he's not doing well. He reads an ad that there's a talking dog for $10. And, he gets some electronic stuff. He's, going to not be fooled. He gets to the dog in the side room. It's all kosher. And he asks the dog some questions like, why are you being sold? He's like, well, this guy over there, he's lazy. I did his physics paper. He takes all the credit for me. I'm paying the rent. I do all his books, and I sit here in the room and he just feeds me dog treats, whatever. That's not enough for me. Anyway, he takes the dog out. He pays the $10. He's like, why are you selling the dogs? It's an incredible dog. Like knows physics. He says, look, the dog does talk, but everything he says is a lie, and I can't stand it. So I'm getting rid of him. It's an amazing thing. I knew some people that we use that analogy of the talking dog. It's like incredible the things they say, but it just doesn't have to be true. And so if you can get into interesting debates with the bot, and there's a few of them here. Can a man become a woman? Is the same true in other mammals? And so, there's a quasi-factual answer. Then it goes through the whole transgender stuff, but somehow other mammals can't. And I wrote, can you similarly transition your age? Can a 5-year-old declare himself an adult and drive? And somehow that hasn't been politically adopted yet. So no, age is a biological and chronological fact and can't be changed through any known medical or social transition process. I mean, it doesn't really, I could probably go on with this. You can, toy around, but it's a little bit, solipsistic and, I hate to use the word masturbatory, but it's a fun thing to do. But you're still playing around with this parent who doesn't want you to think certain ways. So take me to your leader. So these discussions elicit considerations. What, in fact, is ChatGPT's purpose? It's telos. Is it a tool? Is it our leader? Centralized pressures impinge on personal, previously private lives, pushes for zero COVID, zero carbon, and zero control in education, speech, currency, and mobility. For instance, the 15-minute cities. Where's AI going? Is ChatGPT an impartial and independent mega encyclopedia, or a blaring, reprogrammed megaphone for the already powerful, resetting minds to being happy, owning nothing, per Klaus Schwab, so forth? To answer by analogy, this is my taxi analogy, you don't want to hear it again. So what would be a good ChatGPT? And in my view, it's the Socratic method, cooperative argumentative dialogue. And here's AI coming up with a Socratic dialogue. I don't know if that is a reasonable representation of Socrates. So I asked it to talk about topic near dear to my heart, Zika microcephaly disappearance. And without boring, you can go to the article and you can look at the arguments for and against. So I just basically put the propositions, and because there's not it's not really in the target zone of the elites. Zika microcephaly, the same way COVID is, or what is a man, what is a woman, transition debates. It was able to give reasonable for and against propositions, and I linked to them here. And I said, I give it different questions. I said, can you tell me why Zika microcephaly is a complete flop? Was the science, verified and so forth? And it will give you a reasonable answer. And ditto, and I say, can tell me why this is of certainty, and it'll do that. And so that's, kind of an interesting conversational tool, and you can do it that way. So, one of the tricks, I assume I assume most of you know this, but there's a logic, just as a preface, there's a logic puzzle. You wind up on an island, and half the people tell the truth and half the people are liars. They look identical, and you want to get someplace, either their street signs or whatever. So you go up to somebody and you want to know, but if you just ask, you're not going to get an answer that you can rely on. So you have to you have to embed, bracket your question. So if you say, what would somebody, they know each other. So what would somebody not of your type answer if I asked if this was the way to Washington, D.C.? And then they go through their own internal logic things like, well, the truth teller would say, well, no, the liars would lie, and they'll say that the liar would say no, and so they'll tell you no, and frankly, the liars will know, the truth tellers will say yes, so they lie about it and they say no. So if you get the answer no, you go the other way, and that's often a good guidepost. And as far as this goes, if you ask ChatGPT a question in the framework of say, I'm a Zika skeptic scientist, or answer this question in the form of, it's a little bit like Jeopardy, please answer this question as a COVID skeptic, or answer this as somebody who's not this or that. And so if you phrase your questions and your queries right, and you can guide ChatGPT to formulate things in a better way, a little bit like that, for initial example, right? Rewrite the Bible as hip hop. So if it can take a voice, it will do this. So dark mirror. Again, this is I don't know, I kind of like these drawings, but so what's the problem? What's the danger? What's the landscape like? So there's a recent episode of some deans at Vanderbilt. they wrote a heartfelt letter consoling students. I forget what the initiative was. I think there might have been a death on campus, something like that. And their heartfelt letter was cribbed off ChatGPT. Now, at some point, people will not be able to tell that they were inauthentic answers. These people had to apologize and with their own human voices. But what's happening is that there's kind of a backflow, a little bit of mix of the sewage with the drinking water of information. So if at any given moment, let's say day one, getting back to Genesis, day one of ChatGPT is looking at the internet and squinting its eyes, it sees Marilyn Monroe or whatever when it's asked a certain question. Well, if more answers are being produced that comprise the internet of which it is at which it is gazing, and those answers are geared and groomed to follow a political prior doctrine, it will tend to flood out and dilute any of the, we'll call them true or Socratically debated points, the more polyvocal viewpoint of a given situation. So you'll get what I think I analogize here is, watering down the vodka. Some kid, getting back to kids and parents, the vodka bottle's there, he takes a swig and he puts a little bit of water in. If there's, 18 kids do this over and over again, independent of each other, at some point you have a bottle of water, not a bottle of vodka. And so, infinite mirror meets watering down the vodka. As ChatGPT stares at this blurry vision of the web, increasingly it will be staring at its own self-created content and doubly reinforcing its own political biases. If we keep adding good enough, lower quality, or merely politically correct AI-generated content to existing works, there will be repetitive degradation as the original human voices fractionally diminish. I hope that's clear. Basically, that whatever we think of the internet, it's at some point going to be very much more populated by people's, hazily approved conjurings from AI rather than their own voices. And whether humans can edit better than AI, I don't know. Anyway, so this is my issue. So beware, reader. This iteratively powered centralizing situation evoked my wary thoughts of caveat lector, which made me think of Hannibal Lecter, parallel which the chatbot put into poetry instantly. So I actually rearranged this poem. He didn't do the whole thing, so I had to edit. So this is what one should be doing with AI. So he came up with something, but I kind of made this. Beware the name of Hannibal Lecter, a monster hidden in plain sight. He'll lure you in with charm and wit, but do not trust his appetite. Caveat lector, reader beware, for danger lies within these pages, lest you fall prey to Hannibal's snare and end up in his monstrous cages. So this is a kind of early AI from 2001, Space Odyssey. What's his name? Clark. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. When you get boxed in, and the singularity, I guess, aspect where They are controlling you rather than vice versa. So the bot reflects, while ChatGPT strives to provide unbiased information to its users, it's important for readers to be aware of this is I asked Chat, this question, and to seek out information from a variety of sources. When it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic, it's important to rely on trusted sources. And that's not you, by the way. It's not any of you here. Guess which they might be according to OpenAI? No, credible evidence-based information from reputable sources such as the WHO, the Centers for Disease Control, so forth, and other public health institutions, Peter Hotez, I'm sure, Trump's David Bell. And this is an actual, as far as we know, this is an actual Marcus Aurelius quote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And earlier today, I thought I would just put in some other Marcus Aurelius type quotes and ask, it would be hard to find the right one if you had ChatGPT, come up with 10 Marcus Aurelius like ones. So the question remains, and Marcus Aurelius, had this down, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. This gets back to my vodka analogy, watering down, and the thing becomes the thing that is there. So how will we discern trusted sources remains an issue, but part of the intrigue is whether these deficiencies and biases in ChatGPT will present opportunities for competitors. Microsoft, so forth. And at the time I wrote this, I think it was in January, February, I was wondering whether we'll see an, Elon GPT trained on a data set of conservative or libertarian voices from Twitter. And Twitter is really, can very easily, especially because, a lot of the thoughts are quasi-validated by upvoting and downvoting. So Moore's law implies that we'll see faster, better LLM chatbots soon enough. Imagine bespoke models trained on specific data sets or domains to provide more relevant and personalized responses. Let's ensure that these versions are transparent, avoiding the black box decision-making inherent with politically tinkered curtailing of replies. Footnote, since I wrote this, Elon Musk did come out and say that he wants to build a ChatGPT competitor. He said AI chatbots are too woke. He's correct in this. I think I'm done as far as my presentation goes. Happy to go over, any of these other things, but I think that's my basic point. I suppose, again, getting back to the article's title, there's no reason that at some point, ChatCCP might not, ChatGPT might not actually be CCP. As far as like the Alan Turing test, it would be hard to tell, that it's not based on the answers that are there now. So let me stop sharing this and let me know what